We're really pleased today to be having Sylvia, who's the founding chief executive of what was then called Ryder-Cheshire. Sylvia, could you start by telling us how it all started? How did it begin? What happened?
Well, it started in 1986. It was an idea that Enrych himself had. Although we were always called Ryder-Cheshire Volunteers, Ryder-Cheshire Mission, Ryder-Cheshire Foundation, over a period of years the name changed every now and then. It was always Enrych who was our mentor. It was him that wanted this to succeed. And although Lady Ryder was there, he was still our mentor and our guiding light, if you like. And he had an idea in 1985 that came from his knowledge of the people who lived in the Cheshire homes back in the early 80s, where everything was done around people, and particularly people who had were in receipt of their home service. The person, in his words, would sit there, and carers would come in and they'd do the washing, they'd put the washing out, they'd do the cooking, they'd clean the floor, they'd do this, and the person would just sit there. And it dawned on him that actually the focus should be on the person. So he came up with this idea, a very simple idea in those days, of let's find some volunteers and pair them one-to-one with a person who has a disability, and they can pursue some kind of leisure interest, just for the sake of it, for no other reason. And in those early days, he thought they might do some darts, or play Scrabble, or something like that, something home-based. So I'm not entirely sure why they came to South Oxfordshire for this pilot project, but they did, and I was lucky enough to get the job of first coordinator. And it became apparent very quickly that what people wanted to do was go cycling, go riding, learn Russian, go fishing. They didn't want to stay indoors and play Scrabble or whatever, you know. And so it took off. And we were fortunate in those days, the chairman of what was then called the Ryder-Cheshire Mission was an ex-diplomat called Sir Peter Ramsbottom. And he gave £100,000, he happened to have and didn't need.
So a bucket's coming round.
To Enrych to fund this pilot and get it off the ground. They were amazing people. That was a highlight.
Thank you for sharing that with us all. I think that helps to give us a picture of where we've all come from. Can you tell us what the biggest challenges were at the time?
The challenges are probably the same as you have now. Finding enough good volunteers, that was always a challenge. The activity often brought in volunteers who wouldn't consider doing voluntary work of any other kind. So we did find them, but it was hard work. In those early days, of course, we had the money from Sir Peter. But by the time we got to the year 2000, that had pretty much gone. And we had several lottery grants. We had an excellent fundraiser at the time, and we had 3 or 4 lottery grants running at one time. And then the Olympics came, and the lottery went to the Olympics, almost all of it. So we lost all of those lottery grants. So suddenly it all became very much more difficult. So we sold Staunton Harold Hall, and that set us up for some considerable time. And actually, that money a lot of it was still there when I retired. But it wasn't the be-all and end-all, and it was hard work finding the money. I think not as hard as it is now. But you know, we didn't have this recession in those days. But it was still hard work, and we still had a fundraiser who did that full time. So volunteers and funding.
And just one last question. When you see the charity today, what do you see? How do you feel about where we are at the moment, and particularly the shift from Ryder-Cheshire to Enrych?
From what I've seen here, I'm really impressed. I think I feel still this warm feeling from the people in the room, and you can't stand still. You have to move with the times. I'm not precious that it had to stay as it was in those early days, because nothing does stand still. And I think, you know, this PA system is bringing money in, so that, yeah, I mean, and it's providing a whole round service, isn't it? An all round service, not just the one aspect. You're covering more aspects. So I can't see anything other than good here. I think I'm impressed. But I just read something that Ryder-Cheshire once said. He said lots of things, but it says, many of us are content with the status quo and don't see any reason for patiently working to change and improve. But unless we believe in change, we are swimming against the tide of life. And he said that in the early 80s. So he was, you know, he was very forward thinking, not afraid of change, and neither should